Hi, I'm the managing editor of Blackbright News, and I'm talking about human rights in this segment because a lot of us don't really appreciate what human rights are, and I didn't even realise there were 30 of them. So I'm going to read off a few of them at a time, and so you can understand what they are. You know, we're all human, and as humans, we do have rights. It seems to make sense. And rights that are also, you can take them to a court of law and you can actually get them challenged if somebody abuses your human rights. So it is quite a serious thing. And like I said, the European courts brought out an act that makes it illegal to violate an individual's human rights. So let's see what the 30 international human rights are. I'm going to have to read it, I'm afraid, so there'll be no eye contact. I'm sure it might be a little relief, actually. Okay, so the Declaration of Human Rights. 1. We are all free and equal. Now, that is debatable, isn't it? We're all free and equal. Are we really? Are we really free? Can we roam and do whatever we want to do? No. There are some stringent practices in place, and they'll argue that they're in there for the protection of the individual and others. Are we equal? Well, not really, because socioeconomics, finances, places all on different levels. But I think when they mean are we equal, I think are we equal in our treatment of individuals? Would you treat one person differently because they're rich and the other one differently because they're poor? So maybe you would, maybe you won't, but that is what they mean. Don't discriminate. Well, that's an easy thing to say, but a lot of us discriminate. We discriminate for lots of different reasons, whether it's because of our religious backgrounds, whether it's because of our upbringing, maybe it's because of our experiences. Some people discriminate and they don't realise they're discriminating, but it happens all the time. But it's one of the human rights not to discriminate against another human being based on colour, based on gender, based on race, based on ethnicity, based on gender preferences and all those kind of things. Age, disability, there's a host of them. Why people should not discriminate them and treat them any differently because of those things. Number 3, the right to life. We all have a right to live, and we all have a right to live a certain quality of life. But when poverty strikes, do we really have that quality of life we're living? But do we have that quality of life? What about those people who have terminal illnesses and they want to die? They're not allowed to die because it's considered one of the human rights to maintain life. So that's a bit of a controversial subject. No slavery. Well, we have all forms of slavery. Today we have modern slavery where you have child exploitation, you have human trafficking, and in certain parts of the world you still have slavery, bondage, all kinds of. We have emotional slavery, we have physical slavery. And so slavery of any sort, holding somebody against their will, treating them badly, is a violation of an individual's human rights. We also have no torture. No torture, oh, well, we know in some countries, I think it wasn't Korea, but I read, it might have been Hong Kong. I read that the newspapers, they made a case against somebody who they found guilty of an offence, and they reported that person to the, don't quote me, I think it was the Hong Kong government, and the Hong Kong government imprisoned that person and he was tortured. Now, I think the British press are being sued because they should not have given that information. That would have threatened the life of another human being. I don't think the press knew that at the time, or the police knew that at the time, but it is going against human rights to torture somebody. But in some of these countries, that's what they do. And when you think about it, they do it even here. You know, people who are in abusive relationships and they threaten their wives and intimidate them, and they, you know, they have them under this kind of guise where the person never knows what's going to happen, and even though they're not physically torturing them, they're mentally torturing them, and so that's a violation of human rights. Number 6, we all have the same use of law. That means that regardless of colour, race, gender, like I said before, we can all we are all privy to use the law and have it protect us when we need it. Fair treatment by the courts, that's once again the same. You know, a judge cannot treat you unfairly because of your race, your gender, or because what you have done. And that's why we have juries, so that you have a fair trial. I think I'm going to do two more, and that will take us up to number 10, and then I'm going to go into another, continue the rest on a separate video. So number 9, no unfair detainment. That is like when the police hold somebody. They haven't got a reason for holding them. They have a suspicion, but not a concrete reason. They're not allowed to detain them. They have to put them out on bail, even if they have a reasonable belief to believe that person is a criminal, has done something wrong. If they can't prove it, they're not allowed to detain that person. So that person is released into the streets to maybe harm other people because they haven't gathered enough proof. 10, right to a trial. Yes, in the olden days, you'll know that, you know, even like in the time of Jesus, if you're a Christian, he was crucified without a trial. They also used to, I don't know if Westerns are real, but in those days they hung people without a trial. If we go back to slavery, they lynched people without a trial. And a lot of times you'll find that in a lot of these countries where they don't see people as humans, they treat them really badly without a trial, and they just stick them in prison, or they kill them, execute them, or whatever it is they do. And those people don't have a fair trial. So I'm going to continue with these human rights in the next video, so it doesn't go on too long. Okay, and this is Myrna Loy, editor and founder of Blackbright News.